how to dance to the beat of your own drum? Well, join us live today. Joining us live today, we have Gavin Sorochan joining us. We'd love you to join us in the conversation. Let's have a chat. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning. Welcome wherever you're joining us live or in replay to uplifting conversations that set your heart on fire. My name is Sarah Wade. I'm a nature lover, an art lover, a musical fanatic, and I'm so pleased to share my time. The next hour, we've got Gavin Sorochan joining us. He has been in amazing projects all over the world and is an award winner. He's been playing with the Rush Project, Sweet, Joan Jett, and so much more. But we'll hear a bit more about him soon. Welcome, Neil. How are you today?
I'm pleasantly tired. I rode my bike to the office, so exercise is just giving me a sweet spot, and I've been looking forward to being with Gavin for the last couple of days, because I regularly see Gavin on a Sunday, because he's a drummer in for the spiritual center that we currently go to. So I see Gavin and his love for music and passion for music, but I don't really know Gavin. So I'm really excited to join Gavin. And as I said, my name is Neil Thrussell, and I am a life coach, a 4 times international best-selling author, and I'm so looking forward to getting to know Gavin a little more, and maybe not, because who knows, maybe we'll be have more gossip than we should really know about Gavin.
The mind boggles. Hey, so as I mentioned before, we have an award winner joining us today, and I'm really curious to find out his beliefs about the musical industry in general. Welcome, Gavin. It's lovely to see you here today.
Well, thank you very much. I have to say, your intro music, 𝗬cie 𝘂𝗿𝗄𝗁 would be proud. You almost got the spirit in me, man. I was going to get up and start dancing, but I don't have any pants on, so sorry.
Well, thank you for keeping our show PG-13, Gavin.
You're very welcome.
That was an interesting light up. Oh dear. So Gavin, you've been playing with some amazing people throughout your life. Have you always been attracted to drumming, or in your past were you a musician of a different kind?
All right. Well, you guys told me, nothing more than a few minutes per story, so I'll say this quickly. I started pulling pots and pans out of the cupboard when I was 6 months old. At least that's what my parents tell me, because I have no recollection of 6 months. I don't have recollection of yesterday, but that's what they told me. And from there, I just did that. I used to do, I guess, my parents told me I used to do voices, like around the house. I would do impressions, and so I have a background in theater as well. But yeah, drums have been, it's like they say, you don't choose music, music chooses you. And so in that respect, I have much evidence through my life that I haven't necessarily chosen music, because there are certain moments where that would have been ridiculous. But music, chooses you. I have lots of stories about friends and, people, trying to run away from it, and people say, man, you'll be back. And I'm like, don't threaten me like that. And it always came back. Music, art is something that is I think, intrinsically in every person. Every individual has an artistic side to them. No matter what type of personality you are, I think art is a part of every person. every human being's life. How you express that art is different person to person. But anyway, that's my backstory of how I became a rock star.
Ooh, I love that. I can imagine little Gavin getting out his pots and pans, because my young lady gets out the pots and pans too and plays along. I dare say her polyrhythms aren't as good as yours. Can I ask you a question, Gavin? What is
Yes.
your belief that got you from 6-month-old Gavin to just playing on those pots and pans to being this award-winning, amazing musical artist? How did you get there? What was your belief that took you on that ride?
Well, like I said, and I'll say it again. Music, art. Well, music. Let me go back. Art is intrinsic in every individual. Whether or not you pursue that has too many variables to actually pronounce tonight, especially given the time frame. There are so many aspects that bleed into someone pursuing something that it would, that's a study in psychology, that's a study in religion, that's a study in belief systems, all in its own. So if I have to pare it back to something, I would say that it's the sort of thing that, at least the discipline of that chooses you. Like I said, I never, when I was 6 months old, I didn't have a lot of choice in anything. And yet I found myself day after day doing this task, redundantly and obsessively going to this thing. I couldn't explain it. And there are lots of, people that have the same story. Buddy Rich, probably the most famous drummer on the planet that ever lived, was the breadwinner of his family when he was 2.5 years old. So back in vaudeville, back in the 20s and the 30s, and he was making the most money out of anybody in his family. So
2.5.
I thought Animal from the Muppets was the most famous drummer.
Actually, him and Buddy got together once on the Muppet Show, my friend, and Animal showed his true colors. He got frustrated, threw away the drumsticks, and ran away. That's how good Buddy Rich was. But I love Animal's playing. I haven't heard him on a lot of records lately, but Animal is a part of every drummer, and every drummer would admit that if they were honest.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So, just to keep going, maybe just for a second on your question, the passion for something, is one thing. I mean, if we're talking about a show like Uplift, passion is something that everyone has. Passion is something that people drop, whether that's for, and then that could be for a myriad of reasons. Some people drop their passions. You don't often hear, talk to a girl of 6 years or 8 years old or 10 years old, ask them if they what they want to be when they grow up, and they say, I want to work in the mailroom at Exxon. You don't hear that often. What you do hear is, I want to be a ballerina. I want to be I want to be something that typically has either an artistic approach to it or a scientific approach to it. So I want to be a nurse. I want to be a doctor. And that's why the arts and sciences, at least previously, historically, were always housed together, the arts and sciences, because they all played one off each other. The science was perhaps maybe the more pragmatic approach, and the music or art was the philosophical side of science. And so within those two things, you had the people dreaming about science, and then you had people doing the science. Both were, and I would argue remain, as important as the other.
So as the young Gavin, were you driven to be disciplined? Because a person can have a natural talent and natural propensity, but unless you practice, you're never really going to be amount to be an award winner. You're not going to be an in-demand person because you'll just end up being average. So was it easy for you to practice your passions, your talents and gift, or did you find frustration when you were a little kid and then it wasn't until you were later on that you said, oh my, I love this?
No, let me touch on something you said. You said you're not going to be an award winner if you don't practice. I would have to disagree with that. Just take a look at the music industry and the entertainment industry. There's lots of people out there that see, this is a contention of mine. I also have a podcast, just so you guys know and the listeners know out there. And the podcast, although it's about a myriad of things, it's about psychology and it's art related as its foundation. But it deals with the psychology of music, the humanity of music, the propagation of music, the mastery of music. All these things are part of that discussion, the civic necessity for music, all these things. So here's the difference. Here's what we've confused, I think, as a society. We've confused celebrity for mastery. Mastery.
I agree.
Right. Amen, brother. Amen. Celebrity is something that I think ought not and never was. It's a construct of man. And without getting spiritual, and I don't have to, and I'm really not. So why would I even try? But when I say that to say that we created celebrity, something outside us, extrinsic to us, created mastery. And so I believe, in some ways we're steeped in a culture that fashions one as the other and certainly gets that wrong, number one. And number two, does not drive after mastery the way it once did. Part of that is conversational. Part of that is structural as to who we are as people and as a foundation of our communities and our societies at large. And that's what I look to get back, is the community aspect of engaging one another so painfully that it hurts. We've got all these things that we don't talk about, or be careful about this or be careful about that. But our forefathers, and I mean our fathers just before us, used to sit around bars and town halls, and they used to speak about everything. And by and large, most people were accepted whether they said one thing or another. And why? Because their humanity was still the thing above their ideology. Their humanity is what carries us as people. And so as you observe, certain aspects of our global paradigm, it's my passion to get back to those discussions. When you're in the studio, I know, Neil, I'm going on too long, but bear with me.
You haven't got the hook yet. You haven't got the big hook yet.
You're going to have to put a bonnet on me and a tutu to get there. When you're in the studio, that's one of the reasons that I love the studios, because when you're in the studio, you can get really passionate to the point of where emotions start to arise, anger even, annoyance, frustration. But at the end of the day, if you're with guys that know what they're doing, that are masterful and not celebratory, for lack of a better term, you come out of there, everybody comes out of that room with the greatest possible feeling and a camaraderie that you would never get in any other situation. So I hope that sort of answered your question.
Yeah. So let's just jump over to your career. So I think my limited knowledge is I don't know of Joan Rivers being musical. Maybe she was, because you were working with Joan Rivers as a percussionist and drummer. So, and then on the other hand, you were working with the band Sweet. How is that for you? I don't think Joan Rivers was musical. What were you doing with Joan Rivers? What were you doing with Sweet?
I didn't know she was musical either, brother. And it turns out she's not. It was. What's that?
Did she use auto-tune?
Yeah, she, her and Cher, they did a tour together, I think, or maybe they're touring. She came to the city that I reside in at the moment, and I got a call from a casino saying that they needed a music director for her show. It was the easiest and the easiest money I ever made and the shortest time I ever played. It was a total of 45 seconds of a 2-hour show, and it was pretty easy. I didn't even set up my whole kit. It was really just for shtick and to play her on and to play her off. So we played on the opening comedian, played him off, and we kept the same music going for her play on. And so that was pretty easy. I mean, I've done a lot tougher gigs than the Joan Rivers show. But I have to say, and just in terms of Joan Rivers herself, and all celebrity aside, Joan Rivers probably taught me in that day that I worked with her and worked around her the most, just by observance, about what it means to conduct yourself well in a space. You can say what you want about her humor, of which I appreciate because I think I know what she was doing, and I think any well-intentioned person would understand what Joan Rivers did. But beyond her celebrity, she just really knew the business of entertainment, and she made that apparent without ignorance. Although she was ignorant to some because some didn't have their poop in a group, shall we say? Can you swear? I mean, I won't swear all night, but can we say any word or what?
I'm
fine with that.
Yeah.
Well,
So you didn't go into the F-bomb for too long.
Okay, no. It is the F-bomb, and I'm sorry, but I will preface. I'll just say it once. And this came from Joan Rivers, not me. I've never sworn a day in my life. So Joan at one point turned to me because the casino didn't have it together, man. They just didn't have it together for her show. And she turns to me at one point and she goes, "Is this a rock room?" And I'm like, "Yeah, Joan, it is." She goes, "Fucking amateurs." Right to me. And I was like, good for you. Everybody heard it. Everybody knew that they didn't have it together and that they better get it together and very quickly. Yeah. And I really appreciated that because we've lost that. Once again, I think a part of mastery is the mastery on stage and off the stage. There certainly is the 10,000 hours that apply to all aspects of learning and performance and study. So really, in a sense, that's 30,000 hours. And I live by that rule. I absolutely do my best to live by that rule. But that's a Joan Rivers thing. And she was beautiful, beautiful woman. She actually paid me more than promised, of which I was very proud of. And I had to haul her up on the piano, which was hilarious because I didn't know where to touch her. And she just grabbed my hands and put them places I would never have put them on my own. And she was unapologetic. She was so great, so professional in entertainment in that respect. It was a pleasure. Sweet, we were on the same bill as Sweet, doing a festival in the northern province of Alberta. And they came out to a show I was doing, and the guys from Sweet actually, just stood and watched the band the whole time we played. I was playing for another artist. And then they came out. We were playing at the casino that night, and they came out and hung out. And so we just asked them and, told them basically, you guys got to get up, man. And so I asked the drummer, I said, man, dude, you got to get up. And, I want to hear you. I want to take part in this. And he's like, no, I don't want to get up. And so we just sat there and he asked me question after question about what I played and how I played. And he said, no, I think you're better off getting up and I don't want to. So he was a little sheepish about actually getting up with his own band. I thought that was hilarious. Great bunch of guys.
Do you think that was the I'm not good enough story of his coming through? Like he's obviously seen your musical prowess and he felt a little, he's a bit better than me.
You know, I mean, I don't like to say that because that sounds somewhat presumptuous and maybe egotistical, leading to narcissism. So I tend to stay away from that. But that is in essence what he was saying. And so that just gave me a good feeling. You know, it's those sorts of things from your brothers and your sisters, you know, the ones that know what you do and know the process of getting anywhere with what you do. For those people to say that is what, you know, my mom can tell me all day long, oh, I love you. But when you hear it from a peer, it has a certain effect to it. I've had, you know, I think one of the best compliments I've ever had in my life is I met a guy at a show one night, a bunch of drummers, and this guy we hadn't met. And so I quit playing out. I came off stage and he came up to me and he said, "You're Gavin Sorochan?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "I thought you would have been taller."
That's my line.
And to this day, that stands as the best compliment I've ever had because I kind of understood what he meant. Yeah. And I will not tell you my exact height, ladies and gentlemen. But that, you know, that was actually a compliment. It was perhaps, and he didn't even mean it backhanded. He was just surprised. He thought I would have been, you know, 8 feet tall and bulletproof. But it's those honest things, you know, that mean a lot. And when it comes from your peers, it's great. You know, you're doing something. Yeah.
So I highly suspect that our listeners and viewers, none of them are the 4-year-old or the 6-month-old little toddlers, but they're the parents of the young ones. What would you suggest? What do you recommend for parents out there that have children that have musical or artistic leanings? Is there any kind of advice or that you would like to encourage these parents to find deep within them?
Okay, well, first of all, Neil, I'll say that if there is any 6-month-old on the podcast right now, they better have parental controls on the computer. Secondly, you know, here's what I tell all my students. You know, I don't teach anymore, but I taught a lot in my lifetime, and or over my life, I should say. And how do I say this? I've always, you know, you're just able to recognize pretty plainly whether somebody has the interest in a thing or they do not. Sure. And that is really the only prerequisite. As a matter of fact, one of the heads of music at Manhattan School of Music in New York says this. And this really helped because, you know, I used to be part of like mainstream church, you know, and people used to always come up to me and say, "God has blessed you so much." And I used to think, yeah, but I didn't see Jesus in the practice room once. I'm sorry. He wasn't anywhere where I could actually visibly see him. And I thought about that statement. I thought, you know, I think people have the impression that I don't work at this and that I'm not passionate about it. And somehow, you know, this serendipity that others cannot partake in is somehow given to me by some greater being. And there couldn't be anything further from the truth. It is because of my desire and my love. So that passion comes from a want. It comes from a need. And I should say need, and I shouldn't say want, because trust me, I've struggled, wrestled in my life, you know, whether this is need or whether it is just a want. Mm-hmm. And I think fair enough. I'm old enough to say now, it feels more like a need. And I think there's a need for all of us to express ourselves that way. And so when somebody comes to me, number one, for any parent out there, don't force your kid into anything. Let that kid explore. I've had drum students come to me that played guitar for a year and hated it, and played piano for a year and hated it. And then they came to me and hated it. And and music was not their thing. And I'm very honest, I was very honest with my students when I taught, and I would tell them, look, dude, this you're not feeling this, are you? I mean, I wouldn't tell them what they felt. I would ask them how they felt.
Huge difference.
And they'd be honest and say, no, I'm not. And I'd say, then, you need to find that thing. What puts you to bed at night and what gets you up in the morning? That's what you need to focus on. And if you're not focused on that thing, doesn't mean you can't be successful, but why try? Why try about things that you don't necessarily care about? Of course, you don't like to brush your teeth. Do that. It's important later on. But, don't pursue something for your entire life just for the money it's going to give you or the prestige that you think you're going to have. You need to love it. And come hell or high water, do it. And if you have to succumb to, to something else that you necessarily don't desire, then I won't judge you and nobody else will, but follow that. We lose that, we're losing that in society more and more, that desire to take risks and yet, there's a duality there, because I feel that we're maybe more fearful one to another as we've been in a long time. Our inner self seems more extrinsically things are more ambiguous. Intrinsically, we become a little more lots of things, skeptical, unsure, and then you stop taking risks, and not only that, but the music industry has changed. I mean, this isn't the 60s. This isn't the 70s. It's just not. And you can get me started talking about industry, and I'll talk all night long about the good, bad, and indifferent. But ask me another question.
No worries. One of the things I loved about Gavin when I was just getting to know Gavin, he was doing Facebook Lives, and he made some statement that you can practice wherever you needed to be. You don't have to be in front of your kit. You can practice anywhere. So Gavin set up his camera, and it looked like, and it could be somewhere else, and it looked like he was in the back foyer to his house, and he was sitting on a step, and it looked like it was a 5-gallon bucket with his drumsticks, and he was just sharing some drum patterns, and he had just shared with everybody that it doesn't matter where you practice, and you don't need the full kit. Just practice, practice, practice. So it was like, yeah, this to me is a guy that gets it. You don't have to have everything perfect, and so I just really appreciate that about you, Gavin. I liked that particular episode.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Neil. I appreciate that. And, there is nothing romantic about this. I did this is years ago, but, I did myself the disservice of, I started dating a girl that saw me at a gig once. And then she saw me practice. And we didn't date for very much longer after that. And what I mean by that is that there is no romanticism to this. What we see is a perception. It's not the reality of what is. I mean, you take a look at, or maybe you don't. Maybe some people aren't relegated in those spheres to where they actually see the reality of what is. But the reality of what is just hard work. And then again, it's not hard work, it's play. There is something about the brain as children where play is one of the most important things to our growth as children. And play is something that goes on throughout our lives and is very, not only intrinsic to us, but necessary for our continued psychological benefit and health. And it's always interesting to me, that people ask me, hey, where are you going to play tonight? You got a gig? Hey, you want to play? And, I've thought about that in terms of that play. And I guess that's what I've done pretty much my whole life. I've just played. I've kept that necessary component of play as a part of my life. And whether, you know, I've always been happy or not, that component has always driven me to desire more and to desire better.
Absolutely.
I love that. I wholeheartedly agree. I think as children, we're encouraged to play, but as adults, we're not. And it leads me to think of people like Mike Patton, who I'm sure that everybody has heard of, who's come from Faith No More through to Mr. Bungle, through to Italian opera. Now, his passion, as Gavin was mentioning before, his passion is obviously singing. You know, there's a reason why a lot of people would name him the world's #1 singer, because he can do amazing things with his voice. Like anything from bird calls to metal to rap and everything in between. It's just incredible. What I was blown away by Mike Patton is, you know, his obvious passion to the industry. He's obviously giving back, like, you know, even moving to Italy, and he was so passionate about music, you know, writing Italian operas and the like. I was listening to it just a few days ago and was just absolutely, I loved watching not only his facial expressions, but the orchestra behind him. Like, I don't know how many drums the drummer had behind him, but he had a lot. I almost swore. He had a ton. And he, you know, the way he moved his arms and his face was brilliant, which is actually a stark difference, because I may have looked into you, Gavin, too, and I noticed that your face is quite steady, shall we say. You know, you didn't have that same passion. I'm sure you've got that drummer's high going that everyone does when they're playing. Mm-hmm. What is for you? Like, I can see the cheeky smile come out at sometimes. Like, what sparks that cheeky smile when you do play?
Well, the simple act of playing and interacting is the thing that you know, there's a thing called flow state. And this happens a lot when you practice. And in some ways, the flow state, once you start to realize it, almost like an endorphin releasing agent, to be in the flow state. And that's what I look for when I do practice, is to be in that flow state where time passes. And I you know, I always tell my students, where they can, to almost take this as a meditative thing. So although you may be playing behind a loud set of drums, you go past the wall of sound into the depth of the instrument itself, and you try to not find, and you don't try, but you allow that flow state to start to define itself to you, and what that means on a personal level. And so, you know, the stage itself is transcendent. You would see this in any actor. You would see it in any musician worth their salt. The stage is a transcendent place. And therefore, I feel that it is in some respects, a holy place. It is holy ground in some respects. And I do that not mean that in terms of celebrity at all. I mean that in almost, well, in that religious human way, that there are some things that we as humans take sacred, and we would never, you know, cross the bounds of such. It's sort of like, you know, if I didn't know 5 disciplines, you know, how to fight, I would never get into the ring with a Mike Tyson, because he'd kill me. And yet somehow people think they're allowed on a stage. Of course, nobody's probably going to die unless you get on the stage of a major concert, then maybe. But you know, that's the thing about music, is that, but it is still no less a sacred place. And you know, that's another thing that we lost that sanctimonious understanding of, which is that the stage itself was created to proliferate mastery. It was there to show the rest of us what can be done. It's there to educate us. And so, you know, when you go back to Mike Patton, oh my God, Mr. Bungle, I mean, come on. I actually knew somebody that used to drive tour bus for those guys. And I won't tell you any stories, of course. But they that's what you're observing. And that is, the thing is that's not specific, sorry, to any individual. That is available to every person. It's just most people are too busy to enter into or become curated enough at what they do to enter into that.
Huge.
I was technical director for a live theater that did plays and music concerts. And I always loved 10 minutes before doors opened, because it was magical, because everybody, the place was calm and everyone was finding their center, and everything was all set up, and it was just ready for it's like the energy is building and building and building, and we're just getting ready for the unleash the magic and the mastery, and everybody is just so, to me, they were all in the zone. They knew all their parts, and they were just excited, and everything was just ready to go. It was, to me, it was a beautiful time, just before the doors opened.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's, that's I mean, that's the way it is, man. That's art. That's I don't know. I mean, it's just how I feel about these sorts of things, and spending a lifetime in music and around art and around artistic people. You cannot not appreciate, sorry, that's a double negative. You cannot but appreciate the spirit and the heart. And what I've come to realize is that every individual houses that capacity. And so it is my desire with all the things that I do, whether it's, Night Castle Productions, my podcast Unsung, the Rush tribute that I have. I'm also writing a rock opera, for lack of a better term at this moment. And I am looking for, what should I say? Not funding, but, people to come on board with that. And I'll just put that out there. But all these things have at their basis the element of humanity and truth, a sort of truth that we don't quite either want to accept or we've forgotten. A truth about all of us, the fact that we all possess the same goodness and the same raw material to create anything that we look at and say, I could never do that. That to me is one of the greatest fallacies a person can make, is to say, it's better left to the professionals. There are no professionals. You're the professional. The difference is the difference between professional and mastery and curation. And once you understand that, then you ask yourself, does the general want to go to war once he's counted the cost?
So, Neil.
Sorry, I hope I can't help but be passionate, when we're talking about this.
And I think that passion is something that doesn't matter where you are. If you're a chef, you may consider yourself an artist because you're putting out these amazing pieces, and, you can eat with your eyes at times. That passion can fall and come from anywhere. And stats show, we've got 85,000 different realities every second. So why not choose to follow that passion? Why do most people choose to put themselves down? Neil, what are your beliefs about that?
I'm a firm believer that we all need to, we're both trying to switch it. I believe that we all have our passions, and we need, we live them as a youngster, we live them in the youth. And then somewhere along the line, for many people, it's beaten out of, or society changes and convinces us that there's no money in it. You'll never do this, and in something that we're passionate about, and we skip away. And then, thank you, because previously I was a life coach, and I then reinvigorated people to follow their passion. So I made tens of thousands of dollars trying from people just to get them to to be their best version. And in most cases, it was just to follow a passion, just to be willing to take a risk, just be authentic to what their true heart's desires. So if you want a shortcut, paying tens of thousands of dollars in therapy, paying tens of thousands of dollars in coaching, play more and follow your passions. And then, yeah, sometimes you can't make a full time of it, but you still can be and do those things. You can still be out there. There are so many weekend warriors, so many things to do. And I just say, go for it. Go and do it. Take a risk.
Yeah, I've got to agree. I think so many people don't take that risk, and their lives could completely change if they do. Gavin, no doubt you've seen this in the industry. Have you got any stories that you'd like to share on that topic?
On the topic of risk?
Taking that risk.
Well, my story is certainly one of risk. But once again, I mean, the risk is, number one, I think it's a sad term, risk, because I don't necessarily believe that anything should be risky. You should just be able to do. I think one of the greatest gifts you can give someone is not money, it's opportunity.
Yes.
Because if you give them opportunity, they will, depending on a few variables or outside influences or internal influences, they will typically prove you right by their actions. If you give people opportunity, and it's that we lack. It's opportunity that we don't have, and therefore we consider risk. Whereas if we just had the opportunity with the net under us to not necessarily or to negate a part of the risk, which does not negate the hero's journey, by the way. The hero's journey would still be intact. I'm not talking about negating that part of our character that needs to be fashioned and formed and strengthened by struggle. Absolutely, 100%. That is still there, and that's still in place. But the term risk is a sad fact. I don't know that I ever risked anything, because I don't know that I could have ever done anything any differently than I did. So to me, there was no risk in that respect. And if you ask, Paul McCartney, what would you be if you weren't a almost billionaire entertainer? He'd say, I don't know, I'd probably be either working on the docks or just dead. So, that's the thing that I try to get across to people when they try to issue me the fact of celebrity. And that is that celebrity is something that happens to you. It's not who you are. Who you are is a creative being that should express themselves. And that should be the most important thing to you. And what you get from that, you should absolutely be able to survive on the planet with. Absolutely. And that's another thing my show is about.
So, quick question.
Mm-hmm.
When Gavin was from 0 to 18, and you're to your best, were your parents and society supportive of your dreams, visions, and goals, or did you have to swim up a current and swim against the current of what people thought you should do?
That, Neil, is a great question, and it's probably one for 6 podcasts. I'm sure we have neither the time nor the desire. My parents weren't supportive. No, I mean, they were supportive as they could be. With all clarity, I come from a very abusive household. My childhood was that. My father, and he was not a supportive gentleman. That is something, you don't want to get deep in this, because, like I said, I could totally crash the party called Uplift, but in regard to that, Music in some ways, I won't say saved my life, but it certainly gave me what? I don't know. It just gave me something to believe in. It was that part that says you can. You can. Maybe you can't now, and trust me, I got fired off so many gigs I couldn't even count how many. But I've also been awarded that. But no, I mean, in some ways, I think that's the difference between what one may garner as success and what one may garner as not. And that is, I believe that parental guidance and the efficacy of that is paramount to the way children turn out. I mean, of course, that's redundant and even ridiculous to say, because that's just the truth of nature and how we work as human beings.
So you didn't have a very supportive background. So was there that little part of you that says, well, screw you, I'm going to do this and I know I'm good at it? Or was it more of a little bit of timidness in it? In that, no, I think I'm going to do this. So did even though you weren't supported, did this work for your benefit?
Well, Neil, I said lots of things. I said, screw you. I said, screw me. I said, screw everybody. I've said it all, man, at least once.
Okay.
I mean, this is the thing, right? Is that, hey, I ran away, well, lots, but I ran away one time. I remember, this sticks out in my mind. And the only thing I brought with me, I had no money. I was young. I was 13, 14. And the only thing I had with me was my drumsticks in my back pocket. And I remember being in a park, crying with nowhere to go, afraid. And I took out my drumsticks and I just started playing on the back of this park bench. And, it's that I remember. It's that experience of just continuing to be true to myself. Because you can't not, you know what I mean? Yeah. Because you have to, because that is just who you are. And that's why I can't stress enough, and why that's what my podcast is about. These sorts of things are about, is really allowing people, well, not even allowing them, but just showing them what they've forgotten, that this resides in every human being, and desire and passion are something that are so important. And I think through cultural changes and dynamics, of many kinds, we're starting to lose our ability to speak, talk, create, express. And I hope that never happens. That's what my podcast is about as well. I love talking to people that have different thoughts than I do, different opinions. Because I learned more being the dumbest guy in the room than I ever could being the smartest guy. So those are very important. Yeah, those are very important things to me. And, that's part of my ideology, as I walk myself through this existence. I want to learn, I want to grow. And I guess whatever that was and wherever that came from is part of what made me at least decent at what I do, and is continuing to make me decent at things like podcasting and writing rock operas and all these sorts of things. So, yeah.
One thing.
Man, I can talk, can't I? Holy crap.
Sarah?
Yes. That's me.
I think that you have this program. And I think it's all about evolution or evolve. Would you be so kind as to share that with our viewers?
I'd love to, Neil. In fact, you are dead set on track. Yeah, I have two programs. First is the 9-week program, Evolve, and then people get to spend more time playing with possibility with me, and they join me in evolution. So we are about to start the next round of Evolve, where people get to do stuff differently. Like, I don't know, play with Play-Doh, or the concept that your feelings could actually relate to symbols that you see like on the news, the weather and all that sort of stuff. The way that we do things doesn't have to be boring or bland. The way that we've been taught may have benefits, or maybe, just maybe, there are a world of opportunities out there, ways that you can do and be things differently to really feel that passion in your life. So that's a little bit of what Evolve's about. Yesterday I spent a little bit of time with Eli Wild, and I got to tell you, I wrote this down because I loved it. He had this quote, and it was, some people have a pattern of missing opportunities. Now, I don't know about you, but I used to be one of those people. And if you can relate, drop us a comment, because I'm sure that I'm not the only person here who's missed opportunities before. And the thing about that is, you can make your own opportunities. You don't have to wait for the right door to open to speak to the right person or be in the right place or have your whole drum kit with you to play. You dance to the beat of your own drum in your way. Be you. Embrace your you-ness. And that's exactly what we do in Evolve. And it's such a beautiful thing to witness these people's growth and the way that they share and how their lives have changed from spending time with me. And I appreciate that I get to share this with you right now. And I know, Neil, that you've been doing some amazing things behind the scenes, and you are looking at changing direction ever so slightly, but really playing with your you-ness and sharing your gifts the best way you know how. I'd love to hear a bit more about that.
Yeah, as I had previously said, that I've been a life coach for many, many years, and I've also been a spiritual fiction writer. And I just was epiphany. Sarah and I were actually in the same workshop over the weekend, and it was like, boom, it just hit me that currently my calling is to help people. There's so many people that want to write a book. There's so many people that have a story deep within inside them that they need to get it out. They need just to release it to the world, and they don't know how. And I'm like, I've been a 4 times international best-selling author, 3 times in fiction, 1 time in nonfiction. So I know how it's done. So I know the self-publishing process. But more importantly, there's a genre that is exploding, because as people are going to uncovering themselves and who they are and what they believe in, there's this genre called spiritual fiction, and how you can use it to express your belief without being held to ridicule and proving and all of this. So you can write a story and share it, and there's so many beautiful examples. The book The Shack, which is based on the story of Jesus. There's Paulo Coelho, The Alchemist. There's just so many of these out there, and I just currently want to help people get this story out. So the epiphany was this weekend. So the best way to get a hold of me and just to stay in contact is jump onto my website, 𝗨𝗟𝗏𝗏𝗏com, and sign up for the newsletter, and we will connect. So yeah, thanks. I'm just excited.
Loving this new direction for you, because it's what you're truly passionate about. And I believe, and I think everybody here believes, it is not a risk to do something you are passionate about. Even if all the odds are stacked against you, swim, be that salmon, make your way home to what fuels you. Gavin, I know that you are obviously, you're the salmon in terms of, the drumming. If you were in an accident and you could never use your hands again, what path would you take to sustain that passion? Would it be musical directing or something else?
Well, if I was that salmon, I'd probably have them cook me on the barbecue. No, I'm kidding. Although now you just made me hungry. What would I? Well, I'm already doing it. The podcast is a huge passion. Not necessarily the political system, but I
just need to civic for 1 second. Did you hear what Gavin said? We need to go back. And Gavin said he's already doing it. That's take a second to all our listeners and all our viewers, feel into that. He loves music. He loves doing what he's doing, but he's still doing more and he's following his passion. So if one door closes, thank you. That was a beautiful statement, Gavin.
Well, yeah, and just to broaden what you said, Neil, that only took 55 years. So, you know, I understand. You know, here's the thing. I mean, I could have been an actor growing up. I could have, you know, I could have been a musician, hockey player, and music won out. Many reasons for that. But I find myself now, especially in this last epoch of existence, you know, last couple of years at least, you know, you have to ask yourself some questions. You know, there's no music to be had. Nobody's going out. So what are you going to do? So I put together the Rush thing, which was highly curated, you know, a really kick-ass thing with amazing players, visual art, of course, an ode to, you know, my favorite drummer who had just passed away, Neil Peart. But, you know, the podcast is something that I'm very passionate about, because whether or not, you know, well, I just think that we become apologetic for things that we were never apologetic about, that we never had to apologize for or feel necessarily bad about. And that is things like creativity, things like taking the time to really become good at something. So to get good at something is a lifetime. That's why I alluded back. Sorry. To get good at anything, to be curated is 30,000 hours, and that can equate to, you know, 30 years. So, you know, so, but because I had these things when I was growing up, and, you know, especially theater and writing this rock opera, are just things that I love. And they're, you know, I'm being as creative in that as I ever found myself in music. But in this respect, I've gone back to the classroom, and I'm definitely the dumbest guy in the room where all this is concerned. And I love it. I love that process, man. That's what got me to play drums the way I do. It's gotten me to do anything that I do well, is being the dumbest guy in the room. And I just love that. And I have no problem for that. You know, of course, if I'm in a musical surrounding, I can tell lots of people to shut up. But when I'm in this, everybody tells me to shut up, and I love it. I just want to sit and listen and learn, grow, get better, camera angles, drones, you know, filming the whole nine, man. Yeah.
Thank you. And we're very cognizant of our time. So I would like to leave our viewers and our listeners with a thought that you're capable of everything. Find the opportunity, and I'll use Gavin's words, find the opportunity, seek out the opportunity to be the best version of yourself, and just know that you're loved. Is there anything that you would like to share, Gavin? And we're really cranked for time.
That's fine. I'll just really quickly say, you know, when I was in the Christian, you know, religion, I always thought about one thing. And that is, you know, I don't know where something's going to come from, you know, like they say in the Christian thing, you know, God brings the thing. I just have to be ready. So your responsibility is to be ready when that thing does come to you. You know, the potential for things is not always something that you can give yourself. Of course, you can put yourself in certain paradigms, certain, you know, situations that can get you the best result. That happens. But also sometimes it comes from nowhere where you ever thought it would. And in that case, just be prepared. It's not for you to say when or how. It's only for you to be ready when it does.
Thank you, Gavin.
Appreciate that. Oh, you know what? Over the last couple of years, I've seen so many people rejecting themselves in one way or another. So trust that you, like me, have, you know, some really fancy technology, pen, paper, and you're able to write down a couple of words. My name, give myself permission, and then write that thing that you really want to do. Be passionate about that. Go and create uplifting conversations that not only set your heart on fire, but those around you who you truly care about. Help them find their passion, not only their why, but maybe their who. Be their who. Be you. Embrace your you-ness. And guys, until we see each other next time, whether it be live or in replay, know that we appreciate you. Know that we care. And you can catch us on YouTube at any time if you want to catch up on our previous conversations. Until next time, though, we look forward to seeing you. Take care.
Take care.
Bye-bye.